Hey fellas, Meat Trapper here. First, I'd like to wish each and every one of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'd also like to thank each and every one of you for watching my videos and supporting my channel. I truly appreciate it. And in this spirit of Christmas, I feel compelled to rebroadcast the most recent episode of Trapping Radio. Now, this episode of Trapping Radio was produced by Mr. Chip Davis, owner of ExpandapanTraps.com. And in this episode, he shares his testimony about what is important to him during the Christmas season. And he shares a truly, truly amazing story where he walked in on an armed robbery and was forced to fight for his life at the end of a long day at work. This story is truly incredible. It's incredibly powerful and incredibly inspiring. And I'm sharing this in the hopes that if there are any of you who find yourself in a dark, hopeless, or uninspired place in life, that you can take comfort and meaning from this story. Without further ado, let's pick up in the middle of his broadcast.
You know, faith is really kind of a big part. It's actually probably the one of the most important parts of my life. And I'm not here to preach, and I'm not going to, but I am a Christian, and we celebrate Christmas as Christ's birth, and I'm not at all ashamed of that, and that's a big deal to me as well. And I'm thankful for the hope I have through that there, because that's really shaped my life and shaped who I am. But you know, throughout all these hundreds and hundreds of things, guys, that I'm thankful for, I'm also thankful to be alive. You see, I had a very, very close call here just a short few years ago, and had that result been just slightly different, I wouldn't be here talking to you tonight on this day before Christmas Eve doing this radio show. I wouldn't be here at all. I would be in my grave. And so it's kind of been a little bit difficult to talk about in the past, but I want to kind of go into a story, and maybe it kind of helps explain a little bit of where I'm coming from when I talk to you about trapping and other things that I talk to you about. And so I'm going to go into this after one more swig of coffee. I know Clint hits the bone broth here. I'm going to have to try that and see if it doesn't do as well or better than this coffee. Alright, guys. It was September the 11th of 2012, which incidentally is the exact same day, and this, what the story I'm fixing to tell you, went down at the exact same time on September the 11th, 2012, that the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi was under attack by the rebels there, and all the cover-ups and tragedies that happened on that night. And I know with the recent election that was a big deal, and so everybody's familiar with that. So every time I hear Benghazi, I think back to what was going on in my life on September the 11th, just after dark on 2012. I had been on a combine custom harvesting some soybeans for a neighbor in a little community about 6.5, 7 miles away from where I lived. And it was getting late in the evening, almost dark, and I knew that at that time, I have since quit the nasty habit after 30 years, but at that time I was still dipping snuff, and I was almost out. And that was a big deal to me, because I like to have my stuff in first thing in the morning, and so I called the little local store on the phone from the combine, just like I'd done hundreds of other times. And I said, "Hey, y'all closed yet?" And the clerk, whom I knew very well, said, "No." Well, she said, "Well, actually, yeah, we're about to close up. How far out are you?" I said, "Well, parking the combine now. I'm going to be about 15, 20 minutes. She said, "That's okay." He said, "I'm just sweeping up." She said, "I'll wait on you. No big deal." This happened a lot of times before. I come in there. She knows what type of tobacco I used, and she'll have it sitting on the counter there, have my ticket there. I put my initials right there. She sends me a bill at the end of the month. I send her a check, and everything's good. Life goes on. So I thought that was going to be the case this day and this night, and I called her, and she says, "Come on." So I did. Parked the combine. I got in the truck, went to the store, and I did a U-turn in the store parking lot, and I noticed that the lights were off inside the store, but they were still on under the canopy, and I thought that a little bit odd. But I didn't really think much about it. And what she would usually do, she'd turn the lights off under the canopy. So, because the store is located right on a major highway, major U.S. highway, and she'd usually turn the lights off under the canopy because she didn't really want new customers off the street, but she did want to, take care of her customers that were faithful and patrons that traded with her all the time. So she was always grateful to wait on us. So I approached the store from the north, and I did a U-turn and in the store parking lot, and I kind of was facing. I saw, was headed south. The U-turn was headed back north, and I parked, and it was my vehicle, and it was her vehicle. She had a truck, and then it was the canopy of this little country store. It had two gas pumps right under the canopy, a short little concrete approach, and it was a store. The short store was an old shotgun style house that had been converted into a store. It was really, really long, but it was very narrow across. So I walk up to the store front, and the store is only illuminated by the Coke box. And I'm thinking, I cannot believe that she forgot, but her truck's still here, and nobody's there. And it's like, well, maybe she's in the back sweeping up or something. And so I put my hand on the door, and I started to push the door open, and something caught my eye. And I looked up, and literally there's two steps going up into the store. I am on the steps, and my hand's on the door, and I'm just about to push the door open. And I look, and there's a big, huge, tall, probably well over 6 foot tall black guy. I noticed that he has a black mask put all the way over his head. I remember seeing the white parts of his eyes. I remember immediately glancing down. In his left hand, there was a blued or black 1911 style pistol, and he was running at a full charge straight toward me. I knew in a nanosecond, in a split second, I knew what was going on. I knew that I had walked in on an armed robbery in progress, and I had one thought in my mind, and that was to get out of danger, get out of harm's way right there. Now, I'm going to stop the story, and I'm going to tell you that ever since the state of Mississippi enacted a concealed carry law, I applied within the very first year, and I've carried a gun with me 365 days a year since that time. At the time that I walked in on this armed robbery, I was carrying a gun, and I was a concealed carry permit holder then. And not only that, but since then, the state of Mississippi has passed what they call enhanced carry, which allow you to carry in places that, without going into the details, that other folks are not supposed to, i.e. churches and bars and banks and schools. Yes, schools. I can carry anywhere since I got the enhanced. So I had all that there, and I did have a gun in my pocket, but the gun in my pocket was not there for what many people would think the purpose of a gun in the pocket would be. The gun I was carrying was a little Beretta Bobcat 22 short only. It would not even accept a 22 long or 22 long rifle. And I did not carry that gun to ever get in a gunfight at all. I carried that gun to shoot snakes. I farm. I spend most of my days on a farm, and I have killed hundreds and hundreds of cottonmouth snakes on culverts in this delta that we farm in. And it's just something that we do. We pull up on a culvert, there's a little water in there in the heat of the summertime. There's a big old nasty cottonmouth water moccasin laying there, and we can shoot him in the head with a little pistol, and we don't have to carry long guns in the truck and all that. And before I learned the value of coyotes about years ago, I have shot coyotes with that little pistol off the cab of a combine before. a couple of times. So a gun is just a handy thing to have on a farm, and that's the only reason I carried one. And it was certainly not to get in a gunfight. So back into the story, I see this guy running at me, and I do have my gun, and so I think of one thing, and that's to turn and run and get to some cover. I want to get something between me and this guy. I want to cover, get some cover, whatever. I'm not thinking of anything besides CYA, get myself to out of the situation. So I turn and I run. And as I'm running, and I take literally a step, and my back is turned to this guy, and I didn't know it at the time, but there's surveillance video with audio that shows all this well that I've seen since then. The door on the store was actually locked. I never physically put force. My hand was on the handle of the door to push in, but I never actually pushed it in, so I didn't realize the store was locked. But the keys were in the lock, literally dangling there. The guy runs up there, unlocks the door, throws the door open, and he shoots. And I am probably 6 feet away by this time on my first stride of my first run. I hear his bullet about right here, and I know you can't see me, but about 4 inches off of my ear, and about straight up from the outside of my shoulder. I literally hear the bullet whiz by my head right there. All this happens, guys, literally in just a matter of a few seconds, and it'll take me several minutes to tell it. But the way your brain reacts and the thought process is so quick that are here. If I could think this clearly and business and this clearly every day, something kicks in your mind that's almost supernatural. It's adrenaline, or it's something that happens that if I could think this clearly, I would have been a millionaire a long time ago. I promise you, because the thought processes I had that were going through my mind right there was so clear and so concise and so precise. I mean, I literally had multiple things going through my head in nanoseconds. And so I hear the bullet. I remember my hand in my pocket. I remember coming out of my pocket with my gun. I carried that thing full in the magazine, but there's nothing in the barrel. It had a little flip-top barrel. It was a little very, very, very small, semi-auto, kind of looked like a 1911 style guns, what that Beretta was. I remember hitting the backstop of my slide to load the gun. I remember letting that go. About that time, on my third stride, I hear the guy shoot again. This time I literally hear the bullet on my left side, about mid-torso, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 inches off my, probably between my elbow and my shoulder, but mid-torso, and I hear that bullet whiz by. And that happened about the time that I hit the back of my slide, and I spun around, and the look in this guy's eyes and his posture to me, and I didn't stop, turn around, bolster up, and stare him down. Now, that was not the case. I'm still running. I'm crouched over. I'm running as fast and as hard as I can get away from him, and I turn just enough that I'm looking over my right shoulder. I stick my right arm back behind me with my gun loaded, and his posture, I'll never forget, reminded me of a football player as he's got about one more leap to get in the end zone and he's going to spike the ball. It was like almost a victory, almost like it just like he was in control and he was so commanding of the situation, and he was there to kill me. He was holding his gun gangster style, I call it, flat, not up and down like you would typically or taught to hold a pistol. It was holding it flat like I call it gangster style. Thank goodness, that's probably why he missed me those 2 shots. And he was going to kill me. There's no doubt in my mind. That's the look. That was his whole body language. And when I got him in focus, I actually he was coming by right where the cashier usually sits, where the clerk usually sits. So I had to delay just a half a second. I'm still running, and this happens literally between strides. And I squeeze the trigger on my gun, and he goes from. And I'm still running forward, but I'm literally got my head kind of in a quarter turn, peeking over my right shoulder. So I'm doing that, and his posture goes from that bold, upright, demanding, in control kind of body language and posture to he balls up into a little ball and he turns and he starts running 90 degrees. I remember when I was a little bitty boy, I was probably, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, and I was visiting my grandparents' house, and they had free-range chickens at the time, and I could take a 410 single-barrel shotgun and I could go shoot out in the pasture. That was inbounds for me to do, but I could not shoot in the chicken yard. And I remember I shot at a squirrel, I believe, in the chicken yard, and I got in so much trouble. But the way those chickens scurried off, that's what reminded me of what this guy did when I shot that one time. It was like his whole posture changed, and he looked like a little chicken darting left and right and scurrying away from there, because he was not expecting me to be armed and to turn around there and shoot back at all. And so I have another step or two, and actually shot one more time as the guy was running under the canopy there, and I slid around. I could not go. My truck was, like I said, was there, and then the clerk's truck was there, so I couldn't literally get in my truck. I had a big gun in the truck, but I couldn't get there. It might as well have been in China. I had a 44 Magnum and hung over the seat of my truck, but it might as well have been hundreds of miles away because I couldn't get there. If I'd have tried to go and open my door, I would have been dead to rights. So that's kind of a lesson in this and being prepared. So I finally get behind the vehicle. Is actually her vehicle there, and I get to cover, and I'm thinking, all right, if this guy just keeps on going and he can continue to run, then I can go home. I can go see my family. I can go hug my little boys and kiss my wife, and this whole thing's over. When right before I shot that first time, I had 2 or 3 things that went through my mind, and I remember them vividly, and they were like, it would take 30 or 40 minutes to plan this out, but I'm thinking I'm about to get shot. And I'm just telling myself, okay, if you feel your bullet come into your body, try to spin and turn where you're falling on your back. That way you're facing this guy. You can get both hands on your gun and empty this clip into this guy. I mean, I did not know him. I don't have any ill will toward him. Did not at the time. I wanted to be out of this. But if I was going to get shot, and obviously I was getting shot at, I was hearing bullets fly by me, then my intention was, for when they found me, they were going to find him too. And that was what and I had that calculated out, even to how to fall. And thank goodness he missed and I didn't get shot. So I get around to the cover, which is a vehicle. I can see this guy tracking him through the window of my truck, also looking through the window of the clerk's truck. And I see him coming out, and that's the only time I was actually addressing my gun correctly. I was up on it, squared up, both hands on the grip of my pistol, arms locked out front, the way you're supposed to shoot a pistol. And I see this guy tracking, and I'm thinking, if you'll keep going, I can go home, you can go home, I get out of this thing. And I see him coming, and as soon as he clears that glass. And now this time, instead of being only a few feet, the first shot he shot at me, we were probably 6 feet away. The second shot, I was probably 8 or 9 feet away. When I turned and shot back, we were probably 9 or 10 feet away. He had probably made it, 12, 15 feet away with my second shot. But by now, we're probably 20 yards apart. And when he's running out there, and he actually, when he comes around that glass, which is basically looking through the cabs of the trucks, he shoots again. And this time I was on my gun ready, and when he shoots again, I had no choice but I squeezed my trigger again. And at that point, it's like he disappeared. I did not see him fall. I didn't see him run away. He was out of the ambient light. It was dark outside, and I didn't know what happened to him. I looked back, I didn't see anything else. I didn't see anybody else. Now my back is to the major U.S. highway that the store sits adjacent to. And I look from the south and headed north, there comes a vehicle. And I time it right across the highway is a house that the owners of the store actually live at. And they've got a long, long driveway, and at the front of their driveway is some brick columns, some big wide brick columns, real fancy entryway, and it's a great hiding spot, much better than where I'm at. and the guy knows my position at this point in time. So I time my sprint across the highway in front of this car, not close enough to get run over, which is, I already had a bad day. It would be really, really, really bad to get run over by a vehicle after you just survived a gunfight. But so that's kind of what was my plan. And I ran out in front of this car. I was plenty enough to. But I used the car for a diversion, basically. I didn't want, if that guy was laying there watching me crouch down, hiding, I didn't know. So I run and I get across there. I think the car did honk at me, but I use that car as a diversion. I get behind the brick wall. And now I've got people coming out of the house, the owners of the store, they're coming out. And so now here I am holding a gun, and I've got to explain to them, hey, Johnny, this is Chip. You're getting robbed, call 911. I'm running up there to you, don't shoot me, and so at any rate, I get there, the law gets there, and we all walk back over to the store. And what I did not know at the time, and what I only realized after we walked back over there, what seemed like an eternity, it was probably 10 or 15 minutes, because we're maybe 20, we're way out in the country, and the sheriff had to get there with all the deputies and all that, and there were 5 people. There was the clerk that was there. This happened probably not long after I got off the phone with the clerk. There were 4 patrons of the store. There was 2 bad guys that were there, and just 2 guys. I only saw and encountered and engaged 1 guy, but there were 2 of them there. And there was the 2 bad guys walked in the store. They robbed the store. They took the store's money. They robbed all 5 of the 4 patrons and the clerk. They robbed them of their personal belongings, wallets, rings, literally wedding rings, earrings, watches, all went in a backpack. All the store's money was already in a backpack. All this is very, very clear on the store surveillance video. They marched all of them back to the back room. They took a roll of duct tape off the shelf of the store. They duct taped their hands behind their back. They duct taped all of their feet, together. Not my feet to your feet, but basically, they're on 2 feet. They duct taped those together. They had all of them on their knees in the back storage room. And as I approached, I had no idea, but as I approached the door, they could see me, because the lights on the canopy were dim, but their lights in the store was off. So they could see me. I couldn't see them. But the guy that I engaged and exchanged gunfire with had just walked up to the clerk, and he had put his gun to the back of her head, and he said, "Look at the ground, blank," expletive. And I fully well believe, as do the 5 people there, that they were about to shoot all of them in the back of the head. And they were going to steal their $620 some odd dollars that they would have gotten from the store. And I think the plan was, when I walked up there, they're going to shoot 5 people. They might as well shoot 6. I think he was going to run, throw the door open, and he was going to shoot me, come back, shoot his other 5 people, and then he gets away scot-free, and everything is good in his world, I suppose, if that's the way these monsters think. So that's the story. We survived. They got out. I did not do anything at all heroic. I've had people say, "You saved their lives. You saved 5." No, I didn't, because I thought of one thing. I thought, get out of there, cover yourself, get out of that situation. I had no idea that there were 5 hostages in the back. I did this nowhere close to being heroic. Heroics never enter my mind. A lot of stuff did enter my mind, like, don't let yourself be the only victim here. Like, you've got a gun in your pocket, you need to get it, and you need to engage this guy, and you need to do it quickly. A lot of things entered my mind. One thing, I wanted to get home. I wanted to hug my boys. I wanted to kiss my wife. I wanted to go lay down in my own bed, and I wanted to be happy doing that. A lot of things enter my mind, but being a hero, that did not enter my mind at all, because I didn't even know there were hostages there. So I don't really buy into the part that you saved their life, because it was just non-intentional actions. But I was at I don't know if it's the wrong place at the right time or the right place at the wrong time, but whatever. That's what had happened. So long story short, everybody was safe. I was able to get home. I had lots of interviews. I was interviewed 4 or 5 times on the scene that night by different deputies. Finally, the sheriff himself, who's a good friend of mine, he interviewed me, asked me verbatim questions. I'm sure this is all protocol, so that they interview the people the same way with the same questions to make sure that the stories are the same, and I answered the exact same way every time. And I remember asking the sheriff when he was the last one to interview me. I said, "Sheriff," I said, everybody's asking me the same questions, and I've answered them all the same way. I said, "Am I in any kind of trouble here?" I said, "Nobody's ever asked me if I had a permit or wanted to see it." And the sheriff told me, he's kind of a gruff guy, and he told me, he said, "Son," he said, "I don't care about your permit." He didn't say it quite that mildly. He said, "But you're in trouble for one thing," and he said, "That's for not killing that blank when you had a chance to." He said, "You could have made our jobs a lot easier. Now we got to go to work." And he kind of said that laughingly and jokingly, and I kind of took it that way. But so there was no issues or ramifications at all. I'm afraid to think that if this was another state, New York or Massachusetts or something, that I may have had some more explaining to do than what we did. But it's a tough thing, and I don't like talking about it, namely because of what happened after that. That night, I was so pumped up on the adrenaline, and I was not happy that happened. I was not sad that happened. I just took it as a matter of fact, a situation that I found myself in, and I reacted the way I thought was appropriate, and I had no remorse for that. I didn't know if I had hit the guy. I didn't know if I had killed the guy. We did not find any blood on scene. We recovered all the spent ammunition. He shot at me 3 times. I shot at him 3 times. The next day, though, I had emotions that started that were really, really, really weird, and I was not expecting. And so the guys basically got away that night. The bad guys did. And then I start thinking, I've got to go back to work. And I did the next morning. And I got to get back on this combine again. And I got to make a living. And my wife is at home. And that afternoon, we're outside family. We love to hunt and fish and trap and be outside. And if we're not doing that, my little boy's on his bicycle riding in the front yard, and I start having these uncontrollable fears that I spoiled this guy's plan, and he's going to have some kind of idea for revenge or remorse or whatever the right word is, revenge, I guess, and come and shoot my little boy off of his bicycle in the front yard, or come shoot my wife in a drive-by shooting off the front porch while she's watering her flowers. And guys, the fear almost became uncontrollable, and that happened for a couple of weeks. And there was a couple of things that helped me get out of that situation. I'm going to try to start wrapping the story up, because I want to tie this back into a really big meaning, and I don't talk about this much, and just because it's so deeply personal, especially this, the events around the armed robbery and walking in on that are easier to talk about than what I'm about to talk about right now. This is something that I've struggled with for a while, and it was the fear of dealing with, with the what ifs, and that had me freaked out. One of the things that helped me out of that situation was trapping, and I've always come back to that. After my dad died, I went and I set a coyote line just because I had to have something that when I trap like I want to trap, and I can set a big line, and I say big line, 50 to 100 to 150, and sometimes even 200 traps. And I'm just basically engulf my brain and my thinking power in something big enough like that kind of blocks out my problem thoughts, because there's no room, because you got to concentrate on that. Real quick story, I was an EMT for 6 years, and I worked nights, and folks would ask me, so why in the world you're killing yourself? You're working on the farm all day long, and then you go work nights all night long. As a young man at that time, I can't do that anymore, but you work ambulance at night. And I said, well, it's relaxing, because I'm not thinking about anything on that farm. All I'm thinking about is my protocols that I got to do on that ambulance and saving someone's life. And so that's kind of the way that I treat the trapping in those. It's almost an escape, because I cannot think about the fear that I was going through, and that trapping really helped me through there. The other thing was I love to shoot bows, and what little bit of hunting I do anymore, it's almost non-existent, but I'll bow hunt a little bit, but I still enjoy shooting bows, and not being boastful, but I got to be a pretty good shot, and we shot 100 yards all the time. I could literally, put arrows in arrow shafts at 100 yards, and just do that all the time. And so this happened at the middle of September the 11th, and our bow season starts in October. So toward the end of September, I was shooting a lot, and I couldn't shoot. And it was like a switch in my brain, and I could draw, and I could see my pen, I could see the target, and I could concentrate, but I could not pull the trigger without flinching. I'm sorry. When I was trying to shoot that bow, it was impossible to do. And I got to researching that, and people said, you've got target panic, and it comes from a stressful type of incident somewhere. And I got to thinking, well, I know what the stressful incident is for sure. It was the shooting. So I got to researching that, and I found a guy. There was a PhD guy, actually was a professor of psychology at a university in Ohio, I believe, and he had written several books on target panic. And this, along with the trapping, helped me out of this whole issue of fear through this situation. And it was, I literally could not sleep at night. I'd wake up at night, I was so edgy, and he actually, as I talked to this, I don't remember what this doctor's name was. I only had phone conversations with him, but he helped me out of this, and he told me this is actually a form of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that a lot of the soldiers coming back that have been in situations similar, this is what you hear about, and it's literally chemical stuff that goes on in your brain. That and it goes back to the whole things of the flashbacks and different things. And so he asked me a question, and his one question that he asked me, it was the key to unlock this whole trap I was in, of this fear and this whole cloud I was living in. It was more than fear, guys. It was just, I wasn't myself. I couldn't function. Everything that was on my mind was, how can I protect my family if I'm on the backside of the place on a combine or a tractor or whatever? I can't be there all the time. And I was explaining this to this PhD guy on the phone, and he asked me, he says, let me ask you a question. He says, who takes care of your family? And I pop right back to him, well, I do. That's my job. I take care of my family. And he calmly waits a few minutes, not minutes, but a few seconds. And he says, let me ask you a question again. He says, who takes care of your family? And I said, well, I understand you're in Ohio, but I'm in Mississippi, and I'm a redneck, and I've got tons of guns, and it's me, and I'm a big, burly, bad son of a gun, and I take care of my family. Nothing can come to, I'm going to be the protector of my family. And he stops, and he waits a few more seconds, and he asks me the question a third time, and he says, who takes care of your family? And this time he didn't let me answer. He says, you don't have any control of it, man. He said, God takes care of your family. It's not you. He said, you can do your part, and you certainly need to, and it's admirable to do your part. But ultimately, you don't have any control over that. You really and truly don't. God's the protector of you, and God's the protector of your family. And whatever happens in that realm is bigger than you are. And then, and only then, did the real healing begin with me. When I learned that no matter how much I tried to, or how much I kicked and screamed to resist, then I'm just a tiny piece here. God's the one that's in control, guys. And the more I got to thinking about that really applies to life too. I'm going to wrap the show up, but there's so many lessons to learn right there. Is we're just a small part here, and like I said, I'm not here to preach. I'm here to help. I'm here to relay a story, and my story. And so since then, I've grown, and things have become much more clear. I've made lots of changes in my life for the better. Things that I was doing that that I've made some career changes, some based on this. I've had a much clearer head. I've found things like Clint Locklear and Trapper Radio, and I've learned lessons. I've learned critical thinking. I've learned so many different things here as a result of this. And this is just, I wanted to give you this example. And sometimes it's kind of hard for me to talk about because I am admitting a time and really kind of a dark period of my life that I went through that was a lot of trouble. But I wanted to kind of pass on some lessons like how I got out of there. And so maybe that can help you out some. And, when I realized that, it just really changed my life. And so then I get to thinking, if that's right, then there must be a reason that I didn't get killed that night in September of 2012. There must be a purpose for me to be here. And even talking to you guys tonight, the day before Christmas Eve, 4 years later, there must be a reason or a purpose for that. But not just me, but guys, for you too. If you're listening to the show, you're certainly still here. You're still living, and you're here for a purpose. And so there's a purpose for your life. And sure, you got choices. You can choose what to do with your life and how to do it. I'm certainly not any kind of judge, and I'm not here to preach to you. I'm not here to you make those choices. But there is a purpose, and my hope for you would be that you find that purpose that's right for you, and you make the best of it, because that ball is in your court, guys. I do want you to remember this. There's definitely a reason that you're here. There's definitely a reason that you're alive. And hopefully one of those many reasons are to trap and enjoy the natural beauty that just comes from being outside this time of year. Maybe it's something completely different. But it's certainly your choice to find that reason and to fulfill that reason, because when you get there, then life gets easier. It gets a lot easier. So guys, be a positive influence on somebody. Help somebody out this Christmas season that needs you. Maybe it's making yourself a role model for other folks, but get out there and find the reason that you're here, and how's the best way for you to be you, and find your reason and your purpose and live up to it to your best potential, guys. Clint will be back with you next week. Tight chains. Merry Christmas.
Away in a manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he lay. The little Lord Jesus asleep on the hay. The cattle are lowing, the baby awakes, but the little Lord Jesus no crying he makes. I love thee, Lord Jesus, look down from the sky and stay by my cradle till morning is mine. Be near me, Lord Jesus, I ask thee to stay close by me forever and love me, I pray. Bless all the dear children in thy tender care, and fit us for heaven to live with thee there. Away in a manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he lay. The little Lord Jesus asleep on the hay. The little Lord Jesus asleep on the hay.